Hey folks, Dave Temple here. As you know, my podcast is all about talking to the best thriller writers in the world. Now, while I don't put myself in that category of the best, I've certainly got my hat now in the ring. And after nearly 3 years of hosting this podcast, I think it's time to toot my own horn, if you will. So with that, I'm offering my thriller, The Poser, for sale all this month. It stars Detective Pat Norelli, a rookie cop working the overnight beat in Hollywood when one of the town's biggest stars is found dead in her Hollywood Hills home only hours after winning an Oscar. Beloved by her fans, Pat thinks someone wants this star dead and sees this as a way to forge her own path and get the promotion she craves. I'm proud of the response I've gotten from fans, and I'm confident you're going to like The Poser. So for the rest of this month, you can get the ebook for only $5 or the paperback for $14. Since I do this weekly podcast as a free service, perhaps you'd consider this as a way to help out a fellow thriller writer. There are two ways to reach the link. First, you can go to davidtemplebooks.com, scroll down to see The Poser, click, and you're on your way. Or head over to Amazon. You can find it there. Again, davidtemplebooks.com or Amazon. Thanks in advance for your support. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to The Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple, and this is Season 5 of The Thriller Zone. And on today's show, Rachel Howzell Hall, and the book is What Never Happened. This is one of those books that you pick up and you're like, I'm going to just pace myself and, read a little bit at a time. And before you know it, you're digging deep. So without any further ado, let's meet Rachel right here on The Thriller Zone. So let's just jump out of the gate with a great big welcome to The Thriller Zone.
Thank you. I'm proud to be here. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
Oh, I see what you did there. Every once in a while, somebody will be scheduled and I'll start talking about who's coming and they're like, oh, I can't wait. I don't know they actually do this gesture because it looks pretty stupid, but
I'd say that's pretty common. Or this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they're very excited and I'm like, me too. I mean, when I saw Don Winslow pop in this morning and go, oh, look who's going to be on the show.
I know. I love him. Whenever he sees anything I do, I get all like that.
Yeah, he's a solid dude.
Yeah, he's perfect in that.
But
and
today,
so supportive. So
isn't that great? That's another thing we talk about on the show. How many people in this business are so supportive of one another? I love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
This, more than any genre, I think we support each other a lot.
Yeah.
Can
I just do a little? First of all, we're going to be talking about this beautiful book, What Never Happened.
Yay.
I ripped through this thing. I was doing some research on you, and I was looking for the best picture I could get to do some ads. Right, so you sent me a really nice high resolution photograph. That's perfect. Yeah. It's strong. It's powerful. I'm in control, right? But my favorite to date, and I'm going to pull it up, is when you're in the car looking on your website, looking over your shoulder. I don't know what it is about that photograph. Every time I look at it, I'm like, what is she looking at?
That is like an iconic photo. I love that photo. And the guy who did the second, the one that you have that you've used, he did that first one too. I used to ride in my car all the time. And so it was best to capture me in the place where I tended to write. And that was the car. Yeah.
Well, I noticed, and if you look closely, folks, when you go to the website, there are notes and there's scribbles and highlights. And I'm like, does she write in the car? So yeah, you just answered that question.
Oh, yeah. Especially being a working parent and a day jobber, I would use my lunchtime to go down to the car and write. And then if I'm taking my daughter to soccer or basketball or the thousands of things that a kid does, I'm in the car writing. So yeah, it was my mobile office.
I love that. I don't think I've ever met anyone who sits in the car and writes, but it's a perfect environment, isn't it?
And it's so LA, right? We live in our cars anyway. So might as well right there. It's quiet. It's self-contained. So yeah, it's a very nice controlled environment.
I was reading recently, and we'll put a button on this one. I was reading recently talking about, this person, it was a podcast talking about the future of our world and how self-driving cars are going to be the next big thing, and that they'll merge like perhaps an Uber situation with self-driving cars. So I'm sitting there thinking about you. I'm like, oh, you can just dial up, have a car show up, you get in, and it drives you around town. You don't have to worry about it. You get.
Although part of the process for me is the driving, is the actual doing, because it's weird when the pandemic came and I stopped going into my day job. When I was writing a book, when I think it was Toxic Things, I had a very hard time just starting to write. And I realized that my commute it served as that warm up, the mind roaming free. And so the moment I got back in a car, like to take my car to service or whatever, thoughts just came pouring in because it's so connected to my process driving.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes so much sense when I do long road trips, because my brain is concentrated on one thing. I guess you're right. Yeah. It just takes the creative part of your brain and it just runs with reckless abandon.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always, in a place where you can't really write well when the muse hits. But then, I have Post-its and a notepad and all that to like kind of write something. Yeah.
Do you ever have conversations with the muse like, get over here, we got to talk?
Sometimes when I don't have a project going on and I still wake up at 4:30 and it's like, well, can I just sleep in? And she's like, no, get up. There's something to do. And, I don't want to lose that muscle. So yeah. In the muse, she wants me to keep working, to keep writing.
So you're a 4:30 person. Yes.
4:30 person. Yeah. I write until like 6:30. And then I do the business of writing for the next 30 minutes. I work out for a half hour when I decide to do that. And then I go to work. So that usually means just changing my pens, the pens that I use. Since I'm working at home, that's really the only thing that kind of differentiates day job from novel writing. This is a set of pens that I use. So I don't use my work pens to write novels and vice versa.
That's interesting. So you're not a keyboard writer.
Not initially, no.
Okay.
All my drafts are longhand, and my husband got me some great tech to help me with that. I got the Remarkable device, which, it's this electronic tablet and you write and it feels like paper, but then it converts your handwriting into digital. So it cuts my process of having to type everything in from my legal pads in half. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Okay, I have to drill down one little extra inch because there's so much technology shared on this show. And I've seen an advertisement for this, but I haven't seen it in person. And I thought it was just, it's another way to.
No.
But, so however you're writing, it records it. And what if you want to erase a word?
Yeah, it has a little digital eraser on the back of it. So it feels like a pen. Oh. And it's really incredible. And the word recognition, it's impressive. Yeah, I love that thing.
Rachel, maybe for your handwriting, but not for mine. Oh my gosh. And after about 3 hours, it starts out so handsome and then it becomes this. Looks like a doctor's signature.
No, yeah. I was one of those kids who learned calligraphy. And so everybody in church, when there was a special event, they came to me to do the calligraphy. And my junior high school graduation program, I did it because of my penmanship. So yeah, I was that kid.
You were that kid. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there is a gentleman on the scene that I respect, Lee Goldberg, and he put a blurb on this. Yeah, Rachel Hall has crafted her own genre of slow-boiling, powerfully emotional thrillers.
Yeah.
Talking about wanting to hit every single cylinder possible. And this is that book. Now, clarify one thing for me, because on the front here, it says July 11th, and I have a note that says it's available August 1st.
Yeah, the date's changed. So it is available widely August 1st.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
This book is, I'd love to do this, and I've just started doing this recently so that I don't give away anything and I kind of cut to the chase because I'd love to hear your elevator pitch blurb. Like, what is this book? And then I'll give you kind of my elevator pitch review and we'll kind of go from there. Is that good?
Yeah. Yeah. No, my main character, Coco, Colette, she returns to Catalina Island where her family purchased a home. And right before they moved in, there was a home invasion instance, and her family was murdered. And so she returns, works as an obituary writer for the island's only paper, and someone's killing old people. And she's writing the obituaries, but also trying to figure out, are they connected? And then are they connected to her family's murder 20 years before?
All right, here you go. Here's my pitch. With characters as engaging as your best friend, a plot as thick and twisted as kudzu, Rachel manages to pull you in by the shirt collar and not let you go until the last pages.
Oh, yeah.
Being a Southern guy, I had to throw a little kudzu in there.
Yes, yes.
So what I love about this, Rachel, is and it sounds weird to say this. Oh, I love the way she writes obituaries because it sounds like it's an odd statement, but here's why I love it. Mm-hmm. You have such a lovely and a funny way of summing up a life's person. I know you're doing this as a character in the book, but it also shows me your writing style in general.
Right. Yeah.
But it made me think, this is what I love about writers like yourself. It makes me think about things. So I step out of the book for a moment and I go, what would Rachel or Coco write about me? What would I hope that would be the last thing said about me?
Yeah.
And not to make it about me, but I thought that was so interesting to mirror something so poignant because this person has such a responsibility to come down to the end of your life and sum up your life in a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah. And for her, her family, they were murdered. I know when the obituaries were written that they were kind of just the rote type of born, died work. And they didn't capture who her people were. And so I wanted her to be someone who is a storyteller, someone who feels the agony of losing someone, who doesn't want their last things written about them to be this flat cut paste type job. And so when you tell stories, you get to meet people and listen to them and do some research. So this was perfect for her. She gets to, honor those who have passed while also being incredibly nosy.
To get paid to be nosy. How nice is that?
Yeah.
I would love to do this if you don't mind, because I tend to highlight things that I really like. And I won't read the whole thing, but this one paragraph is so delicious. And it's the obituary of Gwyneth Rose Weber, who we're going to meet here, Aunt Gwenny, which I love her. Boy, I want to party with her. But so they're writing the obituary here. Coco's writing it. Ingredients for a splendid afternoon in the life of Gwyneth Rose Weber. Sliced Vienna sausages dolloped with yellow mustard atop rich crackers, a dirty martini, and Family Feud playing on the television.
We all know those women.
Women? That was my afternoon snack. Are you kidding?
Yeah. No, I love that. I hearken back to my childhood. And my mom loved Vienna sausages. So I remember the smell that combined with the yellow mustard, it stays with me forever. She didn't drink dirty martinis, but that's totally Gwen. But, you go to a grandparent's house and there are things that happen that are comforting to you. And it may be Family Feud. It may be the stories, Edge of Night, Days of Our Lives, all that kind of Donahue.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that you return to as an adult, thinking about the people that you love who have taken care of you. And that summarizes Gwen.
Yeah.
She is a Spitfire. She's something else. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I want to party with her. Yeah. It did remind me though, and man, I thought we were we were really doing well when Mom would make, and she would take the biscuits and put a big pat of butter there first, and then put the Vienna sausage in it and put the toothpick through
Oh yeah.
and let it bake so it'd get crispy, and then dollop that mustard on top.
Yeah, that was living.
Yeah. I used to say to Mom, is company coming? Because this is fancy.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I remember the biscuits. My mom did the Pillsbury. You pop the can, and
That's the one.
yeah.
I always wanted to be the one to hit it on the corner of the counter, right?
It always scared me. Even now, I like clench when I push the spoon against the seam.
Yeah.
It just seems like it could go out of control and poke me in the eye or something crazy. Yeah.
Now, I know there's going to be some people listening going, why is he going down this path talking about biscuits? But it's little things like this that trigger. I mean, Rachel, this was 40 years ago. I'm remembering this. So something I read here just whisks me back 40 years. And I took a moment to just relive the joy, the simplicity of that. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's poignant for you, because for me, I always like including details that may not be incredibly important, but they fill out who this person is, what their fears are, what comforts them. And Vienna sausages in that pot of water is one of those things that make me think about my mom warmly,
Yeah. Well, the end sentence to that, as we're talking about Gwen, on Sunday, March 15th, Gwen joined her favorite game show host, Richard Dawson, at the studio in the sky. By now, I'm sure he's kissed her cheek, called her darling, and she's glowing like she's just won a new car.
People who are very young they don't know who Richard Dawson is, but for those of us who do, it's kind of weird and creepy now, but women were very happy to get a kiss from Richard Dawson on their cheek. And it was a weird moment in time. It's like,
Isn't that
joke is wild?
Yeah, that wouldn't go over so well now, maybe.
No.
You don't see Steve Harvey walking around with a pinky ring and kissing gals on the...
No, it's a different vibe right now.
Yeah.
But once again, it's one of those returning to some of the good parts of growing up, and that you associate with family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go backwards just one quick inch, because there is a book on your website. I don't know what it is. There's no rhyme or reason why the cover of this book grabs me. We Lie Here. And I want to say, maybe it's because it's one of my favorite cars back in the Camaro.
Yeah.
And it's just the rear end of that car, and it looks like it's getting ready to take off somewhere. So there's a couple things that went through my mind. I'm like, okay, what's this story about? And why am I so pulled in by a car?
Yeah.
and that book was nominated. I just want to make a point of this because it's so impressive. 2023 LA Times Book Prize in Mystery Thriller.
Yeah.
And it's a woman's trip home reveals frightening truths in a twisty novel of murder and family secrets, which made me start going, okay, let's look at the themes that Rachel's got going here.
Yeah.
And now she's gone, these toxic things, the Lou Norton series. Everybody kind of writes from a point. They're either, there's a skeleton in their closet that they're trying to get rid of. What's one of your underlying themes? What fuels you?
Identity and belonging. I'm African-American woman in Los Angeles, and I've found myself several times, and so has my family, in places that aren't necessarily where we are supposed to be. And my daughter is now going through that. She just finished her first year in college, and she is one of the few Black people in her class, and Black women. And when she first started, she felt like many of us do. We all experience imposter syndrome. But for her, it was extra because she went in and she was the representative of all Black people in the world, and just how much of a burden that can be. And then you realize, they're not as smart as I thought they were.
Right.
I earned my place here. It's scary here. Will I survive this being in this place by myself? Or will I just tap out and can't handle it? And some people tap out and can't handle it. There are kids who have gone to where Maya's going, and they go to HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, because they didn't want to spend 4 years being alone in that way. And so
Right.
all my books tend to deal with that because it doesn't stop. Jobs, conferences, you find yourself the only and questioning who you are, how you got there, will it be okay? So yeah, that tends to be the theme through most of my books is identity.
Well, I love that and I admire that and I respect it. And reading this book allowed me to look through the eyes of a person that I would love to get to know more. This Coco character is just, I
Yeah.
mean, I love her strength and her vitality and her bravery.
Yeah. There's one part that I absolutely love, which captures it to me. It's kind of an aside. There are a few paragraphs where she's talking about when her family first toured the island, and her brother was eating an orange, a tangerine, and he spit the seed out, and the tour guide, picked it up. And I've actually seen this in live, which is why I thought about this. And her explanation is orange trees don't grow on this island. They don't belong here. And if they sprout, if they grow, they'll be taking resources from the native plants and possibly killing them. So it's once again, who gets to be on this island and why don't we want you on this island? Because you may be a danger to the paradise that is Catalina. And
Yeah.
that for me captures what the book is about.
Yeah. I remember reading that thinking, wow, what a parallel.
Yeah.
What a strong metaphor. And why did you pick Catalina? That was another curiosity I had.
It's an absolutely beautiful place. It's only 26 miles from Los Angeles, but that 26 miles, that's the ocean. So while it's a part of Los Angeles County, it's way over there.
Yeah.
And I wanted Coco to be able to literally see her home from this place where she's now isolated. Um, it really is a beautiful place, but it's cramped now because there are a lot more people,
Mm-hmm.
more vacationers and Airbnbers, and people come over. It's easy to access, with the ferry. So yeah, they're having some struggles in this like really, really lovely place. And then there's the other side of the island where it's not there. People aren't allowed to develop there. That's where the bison are.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
You have,
I wanted somewhere close but far away, something unique yet rote. It was perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
There was a moment near the end of the book, and Coco is running away from someone,
Hmm.
and she's in the dark.
Hmm.
And there is the sound of these animals, and I'm imagining hoofbeats and heavy breathing from the bison. And I was trying to imagine myself being in a strange place and not being able to see my footing, perhaps. And
Hmm.
it's dark, and you hear these beasts, and you have no idea how many they are, how big they are, how close they are, and it sends a shiver down your spine. It was a great scene.
Thank you, especially for a city girl. I mean, I remember I grew up in apartments, and I remember when we moved into our house 23 years ago, and just being freaked out that first week because I never grew up hearing the water heater. I never grew up hearing, cats so close or weird birds chirping. It was too much for me. And so for me to, drop me in the middle of the forest, I am going to freak the hell out. And so I wanted that for Coco. Yeah, anybody would freak out with, being
Yeah.
in the dark with bison. But imagine
Yeah.
someone who doesn't even like hike. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm scared enough of the dark. I want to back up something because you just said something and it reminded me because this I'm going to read one more paragraph. I promise I won't do too much of this. This is chapter 1, and this is when I knew I was in for a ride because the way you crafted this one paragraph. The man with the unkind eyes receives my gifts, a can of ginger ale and 2 packets of saltine crackers. His honey brown skin, now tinted the pea green of nausea, glimmers not from the light rain now drifting from the sky and pebbling against our jackets, but from the barely there sway of this express ferry racing from Long Beach across the Pacific Ocean to Santa Catalina Island. Now that, folks, if that doesn't just pull you in and tell you about 10 things that's happening simultaneously with very few words, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. No, yeah. While she's running away from things, she's also paying attention to others around her. Once again, like being the obituary writer, wanting to comfort in some ways. And, that's one of the things that people do when you get on a boat. They give you ginger ale and some crackers to try and help you. Even when they're hostile toward you in some ways.
2 things. I've experienced that. I think that's why it affected me so much. That rocking waving and you can't stop it. And you're like, oh, I'll just watch the horizon. Yeah, you might not want to do that. And then the other thing I loved about her is that very same thing is you don't expect her to be so kind to strangers at every turn and so giving and so innocent. I love that about her.
Yeah. No, and also she represents Black womanhood for me. Well, we take care of people. We take care of this nation. Even when it's not being kind to us, we still reach out because that's just who we are, So she, once again, represents Black womanhood, just like I was talking about identity and trying to figure out if this is a place where I can thrive.
Well, thrive indeed, you are. Let me ask you this. I rattled off a few of your other books and I was just drilling down. Because I'm always fascinated by audiobooks because I love them. And I noticed that you chose to release a couple of novellas as audiobooks only. I'd love to hear your thinking behind that.
Audible was interested in short stories that I could come up with. And initially it was a little intimidating because it's a different kind of writing. You're writing directly for a listen. And there was also some freedom in that because it could only be so long. So I wanted to come up with stories that were good listens, but were punchy and self-contained, that left, the listener kind of like breathless, it's a fun thing. I mean, I had a great time writing How It Ends and See How They Run. They're both, once again, strong characters in difficult situations who try and survive the best way they can. So once again, another outlet for my type of story.
Exactly. And just a great venue for it. And let me drill one sentence further because I would love to hear, especially for my listeners who may not fully comprehend what you just said. Mm-hmm. So you're writing less for the eye and more for the ear. And how does one do that specifically so that we could capture that's how Rachel does it?
Well, you have to stay out of the character's head a lot, meaning with novels, with written novels, you can just talk and talk and talk, exposition everywhere. And with an Audible type story, you have to cut some of that in half because no one wants to hear a character going on and on and on about things that look good in a book, but don't move the story along. And so you really have to read your story aloud to see what the pacing is, to see if this sounds too navel gazing type of, that type of language. Other than that, it was, with that stuff in mind, it was pretty straightforward.
As I referenced earlier, and I love about this book, when this came in the mail, And thank you for sending it. I asked myself, okay, because I'm fascinated by book covers. I talk about it way too much, but I just love great book covers. And I'm like, what did Rachel have in mind here? So I got a two-part question. First of all, does your artist do this? Do you have one artist that does all your covers? Question one. Question two is, do you ever walk in and you say, Sally, whatever her name would be, Sally, hey, I have this idea. See if you can run with it. Or you go, oh, no, Sally, you're the artist. You're the pro. You run with it.
First, I have been blessed with publishers who hire great illustrationists. And the same goes with Thomas and Mercer. They have, their own artists. And my editor, we work together on what would be the most compelling images for each story. The cover of What Never Happened, these flowers are deadly nightshade. And it's a form of deadly nightshade that only grows on Catalina Island. So once again, something that kills you, deadly nightshade, belongs there more than Coco may belong there. And so, there's a scene where Coco gets to the house and there's all these overgrown plants and yards. Her aunt hasn't been able to afford, getting it done. And Coco wants to cut back all these wild growing shrubs. And the guy tells her, don't take that out. That belongs here. That deadly nightshade, it belongs here and you should leave it alone. And, because here she is, this invasive species coming onto the island, wanting to get rid of the thing that is native to that island. So once again, that belongs there more than Coco in some ways. That lives there. That was originated there, deadly nightshade. So my editor and I talked so much that we landed on this image.
Rachel, why do I feel so ignorant right now? Because now, knowing how the story ends and certain things about this, I'm like, how did I not put that two and two together before? So I feel I'm admitting my embarrassment to you, but
I love that, because I with my stories, I tend to put things there that people don't initially get. And until you mention it, it's like, oh my gosh, that meant something. And, they're not sometimes the easiest read. I don't think life is an easy read. And so I want to write stories that really reflect how we live and how we think and how we discover things that we may not have known, on first glance.
I use this phrase a lot, mission accomplished, because when you can cause me to not only think about, what is that plant, or recall, pigs in a blanket, I think we used to call it actually. And, when you can elicit that visceral response and you can ignite that old memory, or you can ignite something in my heart and make me aware of something that I hadn't stepped outside of myself to think about or recognize or honor before, that's when the author has really accomplished something for me. And I want to honor
that means so much to me, because that's what I'm going for. I want it to be more than just, a thriller or whatever. I want it to speak to every reader in some way that picks it up, because as different as we all are, there are some things that bind us together. And, sometimes that's Vienna sausages with yellow mustard,
Yeah, this is bringing up so many great things from childhood. I mean, I'm a PK, preacher's kid, so.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
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 Folks, you see that reaction? I get that my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. You could either go one or another way. And
Whichever way you're thinking, that's probably the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
She says
you wouldn't be reading this book if you gone the other way.
Right. I'm waiting for the phrase "bless your heart." That would be next. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, why did I bring that up? Because, and I'm gonna circle back to that thing that I said to you, is that, I read a lot of books. There are a lot of thrillers out there. And I'm not poo-pooing any gradation of that. But sometimes you want to just leap into a book and go fast, go
Yeah.
hard, kill people, move on.
Yeah.
But here it's when you can take me out and relive something that inspired me or moved me or challenged me. You have just done it.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot I had done this. I put notes in the back of my books to remind me of why I really love this book. For some reason, some of my favorite writing was the obituaries, and it made me realize how utterly boring real life obituaries can be. The second is I love seeing the world through Coco's eyes. It provided insights and understanding that I couldn't or wouldn't otherwise appreciate quite the same.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I that makes me happy because there are moments when you want fast, hard, blow things up, and that's fine. I love that stuff.
Sure.
But for me, it's hard for me to write that because that stuff doesn't scare me. It's the quiet snail in a garden type things that just creep me out and stay with me. You know, fireworks in my neighborhood, I'm not alarmed by them. But when I first moved in, it was the weird water heater knocking or the floors creaking that it's like, what is that? And is it going to kill me?
Yeah.
That scares me more than, hearing a gunshot because it's over. It's quick. It does that one visceral punch and then it leaves you because, fear, your heart beats the same as when it's scared as when it's happy. It's the same thing, but what is it going to do to your mind? What things can happen to you that just linger and you're part of the problem, but you don't know how you're part of the problem. And the people you love are part of the problem. And the environment is, that stuff makes me excited.
Yeah. And the things you can't control often are the scariest.
Yes. Yeah. And for a control freak, that scares me the most. I've checked the boxes. I've done what I'm supposed to do. Why isn't this working? Why am I still scared? Why am I agitated? Yeah. No, and she's like that. She's had to be, she's grown up basically by herself in many ways with Gwen popping in and out of her life. And, obituaries can only be so long. Once again, she can control what she says, how she says it, while still being kind and thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The synopsis of a life in a few paragraphs is quite a gift. And again, I spent quite some time thinking about that because we often do that. You have people show up for your eulogy and they say these nice things, and I always wonder, were they saying those things when I was still here? And is the impact that I had while I'm no longer here the same as I had when I was here? If that makes any sense.
Yeah. What is your absence causing?
There you go.
How are people moving on without you, but with you still? And so, she wants to do more than, you've heard this. She lit up a room when she came in. No one was a stranger. She'd give you the shirt off your back. It's such a trope and cliche right now. It is meaningless.
Yeah.
But saying she always saved the last soda for me because, she wanted to drink with me. Something that is truly, truly about that person. That makes them remarkable. Even the worst person has something remarkable about them.
And isn't it funny when you read or hear a cliche, how your brain will check out? Yet when you say the same, if you want to get across the same point in yet a more poignant way, like you just said, she always saved the last soda for me, you perk up because you hadn't heard it that way before and it impacts you differently. Yep.
And while the quick, easy thing would be to say she lit up a room, I don't want to do that. Not with my books. I want to say, she baked cookies on the third day of every month because that's when I stopped dieting, or something that is uniquely who that person is. That's what makes me happy. Well, and that's how I want to be remembered,
Yes.
Not necessarily she got up at 4:30 every morning to write, but I don't know. She she enjoyed playing Diablo 4 with her husband on the couch every night. Something that people wouldn't know if someone didn't tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. As we wrap, I always ask my guests their best piece of writing advice. And I know you've got a doozy, so I'm going to let you take a second and think about it. But everybody, it can be for first time listeners, first time writers, people who are really trying to hone their craft, but they're always looking to leaders like yourself. They go, oh, what piece of writing advice can Rachel Hall leave with me that I can be a better writer?
Well, and it's part of what we're talking about with obituaries. Pay attention to people, not necessarily how they look, not things that are Googleable about them, but those qualities that make them special and who they are. Because we read books primarily for the characters and how the characters are going to react through all these things you're putting through them. But how I react is different from how you react. So tell me what those differences are. Pay attention to body cues and how they eat, how they nibble or gulp. My husband, at dinner, he's a gobbler and he burps within the first minute of every meal. And that's who he is. That's something no one else would know, but now you do because I shared that with you, and it's an endearing thing. It wouldn't be dinner if David didn't do that, So I would plead with new writers, especially, make your people special. We don't want folks who could be in any novel. Make them truly unique and give them meaningful things to do and to fear.
That is one of my favorite things I've heard yet, because you're finding a signature that is only theirs.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Well, folks, if you'd like to learn more, go to rachelhowzell.com. Love the cover photo again. You're going to see that and you're going to go, what is she up to? And you can also follow her on Twitter, as I do, at Rachel Howzell. This has been absolutely delightful. Thank you for carving out time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is a great conversation. I'm even more excited to share the book now.
Yes. And I had hoped to be able to sit down face to face, but because of scheduling conflicts, we couldn't do it. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to try my darndest, because you're just up the road. You're like 90 minutes away.
Yeah.
So next time I'm going to plan earlier. And
yes, and I can plan earlier.
And we'll sit down face to face, because I think we'd have just even more of a hoot and a half.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you again.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks again to Rachel. And once again, the book is What Never Happened, a terrific read. Join us next week when this gentleman joins us, Bruce Burgos. Now, I tried to read this to myself a couple of times. Craig Johnson has a blurb here on the front of the book. A crisp jolt of cask strength, 100 proof writing. Yeah, go ahead. Try to read it real fast, 3 times in a row. Good luck. Anyway, The Bitter Past. Bruce is going to be with us next. I'm David Temple, your host. We'll see you next time for another edition of The Thriller Zone.
Your front row seat to the best thrillers. The Thriller Zone.
With Momo and Popo.